Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Andrea Rosi, for those of you who have not been at one of our previous presentations. I am the Director of Product Marketing for the Cision Comms Cloud, and somehow another quarter has gone by, but we're excited to give you an overview of what's coming with this previous release, the Matterhorn release. I'll be co-presenting with Emilee Zoskey from the product team, and rather than just explaining what enhancements have been made to the platform, we are also going to be demoing these features for you. Sometimes seeing firsthand is just a little bit easier than hearing us tell you about it. So we ask that all questions be directed to the chat window. We will not be unmuting the group at the end, so please keep in mind this will be the only way to have any questions or concerns addressed throughout the call. So I guess let's jump into it. Now, before we actually get into the real meat of the presentation, I just want to introduce the beautiful mountain that our latest release was named after. Matterhorn is a mountain in the Alps that sits right on the border of Italy and Switzerland, and it stands at just under 15,000 feet, making it one of the highest summits in Europe. I keep joking that we should give discounts to any customers that successfully hike our release mountains, but I don't think that's actually been approved, so I'm sorry to tell you. But we also have named our upcoming releases so we can begin to clearly reference those as well. Emilee, on the next slide. Perfect. There's a bit of a delay, but the Q1 18 release will be called Mount Logan, after the highest mountain in Canada, and we are naming our Q2 18 release Mount Blanc, which is the highest mountain in the Alps. So on that note, we can jump into the real part of the presentation. So the presentation is broken out into 4 key themes, the first of which is around expanded data options for social engagement. So this will be the heaviest section of our presentation. Just bear with us. I promise we'll get to the rest, and we'll definitely leave some time for questions at the end. So before we even get started, I want to spend a minute covering the social features and functionality that we feel are most relevant for the comms professional like yourself, based on feedback that we've heard from customers like you. So what features are important when it comes to supporting you and your teams around social? First, comms teams really need a way to identify influencers as well as topics that are most relevant to their brand, products, or even competition. So in order to do that, they'll definitely benefit from a tool for social monitoring or listening. Next, they'll typically want a way to engage audiences so they can interact via social channels, whether they want to like a post or make a comment. But it's important for them to be able to step in and help shape relevant conversations that pop up on social channels. They need to be able to chime in when necessary. Social amplification, so what does that actually mean? Social amplification itself offers insight into how many times content is shared on social channels. This type of data helps offer insight into whether a post is viral or trending. And as a side note, this is really helpful because I do want to point out, just because a piece of content is trending, that doesn't mean it's driving engagement from the right audiences necessarily. So to take that a step further, we also think it's important to have social engagement analytics. So beyond those soft metrics, such as the number of likes, comments, and shares. And this will help to give meaning behind those numbers, like who is actually posting, what is their reach and their influence on the target audience. And then lastly, reporting is always extremely important. I don't need to tell you that, but attributing value to social campaigns is just as important as attributing value to any earned media campaign. So being able to pull reports that are, of course, easy to read and then easy to share. So on the next slide, you'll be able to see that up until this point, the Comms Cloud has provided the ability to listen to conversations happening across social, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, directly in the same feeds as your traditional news. It has, however, lacked the ability to provide a meaningful way to organize that data by engagement or by followers or by potential impact. So as a result, customers like you haven't been able to take action on these data points. So instead of aggregate numbers, you'll have to go on a clip-by-clip basis. So now we've made a number of updates, which we'll, of course, cover in much detail. And we did this so that we can empower users like you to leverage social amplification data, store and sort engagement data, and report out on social campaigns as you would any other earned media campaigns in the Comms Cloud. Now, let's take a look more broadly at how Cision helps comms teams really harness social. I'm sorry, I think we have a little bit of lag on the slides here.
Yeah, they're not advancing, Andrea. I'm trying to refresh it.
Okay, no problem.
Apologies. We know everybody, they're not advancing.
So in the meantime, I'll just talk to you guys. That's completely fine. As much as we love visuals, we can still get the point across. So we're focusing here specifically on Cision's social capabilities and how they can help you better tell a story across all earned media channels. This, of course, showcases our products for Cision monitoring and Cision analytics. So we talk a lot about how over the past decade, there's been this explosion of people interacting on social channels for both personal and business purposes. So currently there's about 2 billion active users on Facebook, 1.5 billion on YouTube, 700 million on Instagram, and over 330 million leveraging Twitter. Oh, good, we're back. So broader marketing groups have successfully tapped into the world of social in a whole number of ways. Some use it for customer support, others general audience engagement. But unfortunately, comms teams have fallen behind their peers with insufficient insight into how to best identify those journalists and those influencers that will actually reach their target audience and impact real business. So while other marketing teams have the support of social media management tools, comms teams require a specific solution that will integrate with the rest of their comms initiatives. Now, comms teams have a data problem when it comes to social. The reason they cannot identify key influencers in the world of Facebook and Instagram is because they've spent the last decade relying on soft metrics such as number of likes, comments, or shares generated by a social post. So without the meaning behind those numbers, like who is engaged or their influence or further interactions they've generated, how can comms professionals really attribute value to their social campaigns? I'll just pause for a sec so we can play catch up with the slides. Perfect. So as a result of this lack of data, comms professionals continue to just guess. So they assume their most liked or their most shared posts are the ones that matter and create similar content, hoping they'll generate big numbers again. Now, the problem with this approach is that they aren't necessarily delivering content that resonates with their target audiences. So they'll see a trending or a viral post, and that might be proof that a topic sparked interest, but there's really no guarantee that it did so from the right audiences that will generate business for their brand. So Cision's mission is to empower comms teams to identify the right influencers, craft and distribute meaningful campaigns, and measure the impact on customer behavior. So with Cision Comms Cloud, social media fully integrates into broader earned media strategy. First, you can start by monitoring social conversations across all earned media channels, including key social media networks. And through that, you're able to identify which influencers are discussing relevant brands, industries, or topics. And then you can gauge the impact of these influencers on your target audience. Next, by evaluating the level of engagement with specific social posts as well as the individuals who've participated in the social interaction, you can determine which content is most impactful to the audiences that matter. And then you can proactively craft campaigns moving forward that are likely to keep these target audiences engaged. And then lastly, you can attribute value to your social media efforts, and you can be sure you're sharing successes with key internal and external stakeholders. So in order to do this, you might look at broad data points such as aggregate number of mentions, likes, comments, followers, etc., across various social channels to understand engagement trends. So once you understand where your social coverage is coming from, you determine who the influencers are that are posting most frequently about your brand, again, other important things like competition or products, and you can uncover down to the specific post what those influencers are saying. We have top author reports, which Emilee will show you later, that help to enable comms teams to understand which influencers have the biggest impact by sorting these influencers by potential social reach. And then with this level of granularity, you'll be able to create more effective messaging and campaigns to resonate with the right influencers to impact your target audience. And then with Cision monitoring, you have the ability to listen to those conversations that matter most via popular social channels, again, like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, alongside all other earned media coverage. So social is not a standalone function for the comms team, but it's part of a larger campaign strategy. And having an all-in-one platform allows teams like yours to view campaigns across influencers, traditional media, social media, and even broadcast to see how messaging and campaigns are resonating with target audiences. By setting up keyword search strings, you can monitor specifically for what people are saying about your brand. You can also, within Comms Cloud, easily filter social conversations to pinpoint social media channels and influencers that are, again, most relevant. And then lastly, with Cision Analytics, you have all access to charts and engaging, easy-to-share dashboards, so you can actually visualize the social data in the way that matters most to your brand. And then with the ability to filter data by any number of custom categories, your teams can find the meaning behind the numbers and go beyond just overall mentions, but leverage engagement and follower data to identify the elements of the campaign that are driving the most interest. So if you do use Cision monitoring and you have both news and social monitoring turned on, you will be eligible, or you are eligible, for an additional SKU for social engagement analytics. And with this new functionality, you can view all social posts from the grid view interface in My Coverage. You'll be able to sort posts by a whole slew of stats, including follower count of individual authors, and of course, metrics including likes, comments, or shares. And then under the Analytics tab, you can visualize all of these metrics on various charts and graphs. So you'll even be able to create those top author charts that I talked about earlier. And again, Emilee will show you those in just a second. And then you'll have the flexibility of Cision Analytics to really slice and dice social data in the way that makes most sense for your team. As always, you'll have access to our existing reporting features so you can share static or dynamic reports with important stakeholders. But Emilee, I'll pass off to you. I think it will just be easier at this point for them to jump in and see a demo of this portion of the tool, and we'll go from there.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Andrea. So I am jumping right into the Cision Communications Cloud to show you all this new feature. So I'm just going to walk through how to find it, what it looks like, and how you guys could potentially use it to help with measurement and engagement. So first things first, going into the Cision Communications Cloud, this is a part of our monitoring social package. So I'm going into news, and I'm going to go to My Coverage. I'm just going to jump right in. I've got a saved search ready to go to show you all today. So I've broken this down to show a little bit of social as well as a little bit of web articles and how this feature can enhance the experience in the Comms Cloud. So as Andrea mentioned, there's two pieces to this. The first is social engagement. So if you're monitoring social clips within the Cision Communications Cloud, we're now going to collect the stats on that information, on those posts in a way that is reportable and sortable, so you can take that information and pull the most important ones to the top of your results. So I'm going to jump over to what I like to call the grid view, which is the one where we've got all the columns that you can sort, slice, and dice. And as you notice here, we've got a healthy mix of content. The one at the top, just as an example, is an Instagram post that came in into our demo system here, and you'll notice that I can see that clip, that particular story has 302 likes on it and 2 comments. I can also see that the audience of that post was 33,000 people. So again, it's really easy to sit here and filter by followers, find the articles or the social posts that had the most audience, the largest audience. Find the social posts that had the most engagement based on likes, shares, comments. Each social network is a little bit different because each of them have different metrics that they track. But they'll all be stored in one of these 3 columns. And along with social, so when I say social, I mean Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook monitoring, we're also giving you share and engagement information for web clips. So if a web clip comes into the system where we're able to match that to a socially shared story, we will also provide you those metrics. So let me get an example here. Culture PR, this one that I've got my mouse over right now. That one, we noticed that article was shared 5 times on social and had an audience count of 448. So again, just pulling in social data, attaching it to web clips, as well as the social information in the system that you're monitoring for in a way that's easy to slice and dice. You can also export all this information. So if I wanted to take these 9 clips and send them to someone at my organization, I could select them all and run my export and choose to include those columns, the likes, the shares, the comments, the followers, so that I can then export that, have it in Excel, and pass it along however I need to. The last piece of this is also analytics. So obviously the raw data is great. It helps us find good clips, but the larger scale analytics charts is also something that's really powerful as a part of this feature. So I'm going to jump into my social dashboard here so you can quickly see. What this is going to do is this is going to add those engagement metrics to charts and graphs. So the first one here is based on volume, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube posts over time based on my monitoring and what I've got set up to bring in content into my system. So that's not new. That chart's actually been around for a while, but the ones below that, these are the new ones. These are the ones that are going to give you the engagement metrics for each network. So it's a social engagement chart, and you can filter it down for what network you're looking at. So notice the second one here is really good. It's got a lot going on, showing all the Facebook coverage that I've got in this dashboard. Here's the likes, comments, and shares breakdown of that information. It also, on the right, has a Facebook author chart. So it's telling me all the people who are the Facebook pages that are posting the content that I'm pulling in that I'm looking at the engagement on. So again, very powerful metrics for social that you can see in a dashboard view as well as in the clip view like I showed a moment ago. All of this can be downloaded and shared just like the reports can now. The same functionality applies across the board. That is actually all I was going to show, Andrea, so I can pass it back to you.
Perfect, thank you. So next up, we're going to discuss our web analytics integrations. Perfect. So you might be wondering what we're talking about since we do already integrate with both Google Analytics and Adobe Analytics, but we have added some new features to the outlet conversion page. So what's new? Now, previous metrics for Google Analytics integration included referrals, goal completion, and revenue. But now we are offering insight into page views, average sessions, bounces, and new users as well. For Adobe Analytics, we previously only tracked referrals, but now we track average seconds on a page, checkouts, orders, and revenue. So we did this because we know how many of you leverage Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics already, and we want you to be able to really capitalize on all of your data. So taking a more data-driven approach, you can identify which coverage is driving visitors to your web page and ultimately generating business for your company. And also, we want you to be able to leverage this type of information to determine how coverage is impacting ROI. And I will pass off to you again, Emilee. That was a quick one, but for you to share what this actually looks like.
Absolutely. Let me jump back into the Comms Cloud here. So I'm just going to show this feature kind of from start to finish because I want to make sure those that take advantage of Google Analytics and Adobe Analytics outside of the Cision Communications Cloud know where to set this up. And then I'll show you where the information propagates in. So I'm first just going to jump over to settings just so you can quickly see this. So there's an area in settings called third-party integrations, and this is where you can connect your Google Analytics or your Adobe Analytics, just as a quick reference point to see where this shows. From there, as Andrea mentioned, there's a page under Insights called Outlet Conversions. So if you have this area of the application as a part of your package, you'll have this page. If you haven't connected either of those accounts, you obviously would see no information here. It would be prompting you to connect. But once you do, you then see something similar to this. So this page is not new. This has been here for a while. The new features that Andrea mentioned are we're adding a whole bunch of new metrics. So everything from page views to the right are all new metrics for you that are available here. And what this is doing in general is it's pulling in that Google Analytics data and it's connecting it to an outlet to show you that this outlet has provided traffic to your website and then providing some of the stats around that information. So if you subscribe to our database as well, you can actually click on these and jump over to look more at that outlet. This is obviously a demo system, so these aren't great examples, but that's the gist of this page. The other piece is the Adobe part. So if you had an Adobe account or Adobe Analytics and you had connected that, the page looks almost exactly the same. The difference is the columns would be named a little differently based on the metrics that Adobe uses that are comparable to Google Analytics. So I don't have an example of that here today, but note that it all looks and works the same, just for the two different metric points based on the account that you connect. And I will pass it back over to Andrea now.
Great, thanks, Em. So now we are going to jump into our new consolidated profile. This is Emilee's baby, so I know she's going to love demoing it for you in a minute. But what's new? This is going to be important to all of our Cision database users out there. So previously, when searching for a contact, you might have noticed that those with multiple outlet relationships have been harder to manage. Up until this release, notes and history have been separate for each version of the contact profile. So it's been hard to determine when you may have last connected with an influencer or what you talked about without checking all versions of their profile. But now Emilee will show you in just a second how we have solved that problem and consolidated the notes and the history across all versions of the contact's profile. And in addition, a consolidated auto suggestion will allow you to easily identify when multiple profiles lead to the same person, and will also display consolidated results in the influencer search results view. So we did this so you'd have a more streamlined process when identifying and viewing those popular influencers. So we didn't want this to be a frustrating process for customers that required you to switch between various screens. We also wanted you to be able to get a more holistic view of your brand's relationship with individual influencers in order to create more targeted lists and really capitalize on each of those relationships. So if there is a case that comes up where a media contact has a different email or focus at a different outlet, you can still target only the relevant versions of the contact profile as well. But Emilee, I will pass off to you to show everyone what this looks like.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Andrea. Let me switch back over here and just reset back over to influencers. So like Andrea mentioned, we did a couple of things across the platform to help make the user experience a little bit easier in identifying when media contacts are the same person, as opposed to the previous workflow, where they were a little bit more disjointed. So what we've done is we've, in a couple of different areas, consolidated the view and allowed for more easily toggling between one person's different outlet relationships that they may have. So for my example today, I'm going to use Hoda from the Today Show because she's a great example, and here she does lots of different things, right? So this is the first feature that I can highlight right here on this page, our auto suggestion. So as you start typing in Hoda's name, you see one of her profiles at the top, and you notice the rest are actually indented underneath that. And what that's signifying is that this is the same person. We're just letting you know that Hoda, there's one profile for her, and then there's actually 5 more. So there's no confusion that it's this another person with the same name. It's identifying that it's not that way. So actually back up here for 1 second so you can see it in a larger view. So notice we've got a couple here that are indented in. So that's kind of an enhancement to this auto suggest to make it easier when you're scrolling through the context to find the one you're looking for and find the outlet for that person that you're looking for. So with that, I'm actually going to go straight to Hoda's profile here. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the changes we made here. Based on some feedback we received from you all and on all of our customers, 2 of the main things that they wanted consolidated on this page and done as a part of this project is the history and the notes. So you will now notice that no matter which version of Hoda you add an activity to, suppose you send her an email distribution, suppose you add a manual activity. I did a couple here saying I had an appointment with her, or I had an interview with her, whatever it may be. Those will all show on every version of her profile, no matter which outlet you're focused on at the time. The idea is pulling everything together. You want to be able to see all the interaction your entire comms team has had with this media contact, regardless of which outlet you're looking at, because ultimately, like I said in the beginning, she's one person. So a way to toggle between her outlets, I'll show that really quick, in the upper left-hand corner, underneath her name and title and the outlet we're currently located on, I can actually click Show 4 Other Outlets, and I will see the other 4 available. Now notice I'll flip over. Right now I'm on her Dateline NBC outlet. I'm going to flip over to her Today Show outlet. You'll notice 2 things. The history stays the same, like I said, and the notes also stays the same. So those are the 2 things we really consolidated across the board. So if you type in some notes here, you will see it in every variation of Hoda's profile. I've got some here from testing this earlier, but I can show you test again. And I click outside of that, and then I toggle to her radio show. I see the same set of notes with my test again there. So it all kind of magically seams together to make a better experience for you guys in logging the notes across different influencers that you may be interested in, tracking within your Communications Cloud. So that's the profile page, the 3 different pieces that we did there. The final piece of this is the search, and this is important because we want to make sure that when you're searching in the media contact database in your Comms Cloud that you're finding exactly what you need, and we're not providing you duplicate records unless you absolutely need them. And by duplicate records, I mean the same person at multiple outlets, like the Hoda example. So I'm going to run a quick search here. We'll talk about these new features at the bottom in a moment. So let me run a quick search. so you can see this feature in action in the results set here. Okay, perfect. So I ran a search for general assignment news editors in New York, New York. You'll notice the first thing is we've got a new label in here that says multiple outlets, which I'll talk about. But the main thing to note is what we do now when you search in the Cision Communication Cloud is we provide you one profile for each media contact in the result set. So even if Alan Abramson here has multiple outlets that would have come back in my results, by default, we're only showing you one. And again, the idea is we're providing you with one result based on the search you did, but we're giving you the option to expand all. So on the left-hand side, under contacts with multiple outlets, this new field in the filter, you can actually turn this on, and what that's going to do is that's going to open up all versions of Alan's profile and allow you to take action on those. So if you do want to add both Alans to a list, or you want to export them both for whatever reason, run a briefing book, you still have that full capability. It's just by default, we're only showing you the primary profile there. This information displays in the filter, like I said, it also displays in this multiple outlet label that you see. So you'll see that label when we're letting you know, hey, there's more of this person in case you want to see who that is. And the final piece is there's actually a column on the grid, in case you prefer that view, that tells you that there's multiple of that person in your result set. It's your multiple outlets column here that can be sorted and moved around and removed if you don't even need it. So that's kind of the general overview of the media outlet our media contact consolidation project. And I will pass it back to Andrea.
Great, and so at this point, we will move into our last section of the presentation around continued usability improvements. So first up, we have our database section. So with new enhancements, you'll be able to view and reuse recent influencer searches, and you can save frequent searches for any other user to access in the future. So these updates allow you for a much quicker workflow when it comes to making changes to a previous search. In the past, this process has been maybe a little bit of a headache, even if the user only had to make minor edits. This really just helps to streamline the process of identifying key influencers. Also, it helps to improve collaboration. So saving criteria, search criteria specifically, means various team members can repurpose those searches if they're applicable to another project rather than having to recreate the wheel each time. So Emilee, I'll have you show them this feature as well as any other relevant database enhancements that have been made.
All right, awesome. I'll jump right back into the Comms Cloud here then. And you all may have noticed this based on the discussion we just had about consolidated profile. But to kind of show you what Andrea just mentioned, the two new features you'll notice on the influencer search page are recent searches and saved searches. Just to talk about them a little bit, the recent searches is the searches that you've done recently as a user in your Comms Cloud system. So it's just for you to see your login. It doesn't, no one else sees it except your login. And it will show you the last 20 recent searches you did in the influencer section of the database, whether they're media contacts or media outlets. It'll give you a general idea of what that was, as well as give you a date and time stamp. So that's what the recent searches is all about. A very cool feature to kind of go back and redo something if you forgot what you had done or you need to run another search again. Saved searches is a little bit more broad. It's for your entire account, and it's a way that you can save a search so that your coworkers or you can come back and access it again, and it's kind of locked there for you to use whenever you need it. So I'm going to run a quick example of how to do that. So I'm just going to choose one of my recent searches here. You'll notice when you click it, it actually populates the page. So it fills out that data for you. So again, making for a better usability, you could, suppose you did a search and you just want to make one small change to it. This would be a really easy way to do that. So you can click on a search. Maybe I now want a different country instead of the United States. I could change that and then I can run it. So I'm just going to run this search to show you how to save a search. So once you do a quick search, you'll notice in the top right-hand corner of the page while this loads, there's now a saved search button. So if you really like this search that you've run for a blogger and then all the subjects that are attached to it in the United States, you can actually save it. You just simply name it. Let's call this my test search. Hit save. And then the next time you or any of the users in your Comms Cloud platform go back to the search page, they will now see that saved search on the left-hand side. For admin users of the system, it can be edited, and by edit here we mean just the name, The name of it can be edited, and it can be deleted. So if you don't want to see it anymore, you're not going to use it again, you can delete it. So that's the workflow there. A couple other things I just want to mention quickly while we have everybody here. I'm going to do another search just to show you one other feature you may have already noticed. At the top of the page, you now have search term transparency. So this is showing you what you searched for. It's reminding you how you got to where you are. So if you run a search and you forget what the criteria is, instead of having to go back and look on the search page or look at recent searches, you can see it right here along the top in this well of information here. If it goes longer than the screen, you've got a hover state where it will show you the full length of your search if you need it. And lastly, before I pass back to Andrea, you'll notice a couple more search fields that were added. One that I want to highlight today is specifically around the outlet focus. So I'm going to click on it just to give you a quick view, but basically what this is allowing you to do is add another criteria to your search to only focus on contacts that work for outlets that have a focus nationally or regionally or internationally. So it's a really good way to find media contacts that work for an outlet that focus on a specific market area that you're interested in. So you could say, show me all the media contacts that work for an outlet based on in New York City that has a local focus. And that will help eliminate some of the more national publications that just happen to be located in New York. So just wanted to highlight that one as well. And Andrea, I will pass it back off to you.
Perfect. So now we'll jump into the monitoring side. On the monitoring side, we have new smart tag filtering. So with this, you're able to search and filter news based on keywords that are set up to determine if a news clip is a feature, a mention, or a brief. Really, this provides you with increased flexibility and speed. Your teams are able to quickly identify the weight that a news clip carries and can also quickly and easily edit clips as needed. So our existing Cision monitoring customers will benefit from smart tag filtering, especially those that came from CPRE. This was lost functionality that had initially been lost when migrating from CPRE onto the Comms Cloud. In CPRE, this functionality has been referred to as auto news typing. But with this new Comms Cloud version, you get that same functionality, but you can also edit a clip as needed. So Emilee, I will pass back to you to show them this feature as well as any other relevant monitoring enhancements.
All right, thank you, Andrea. Okay, so this, like I mentioned, is over in the monitoring section of the application under news. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the news search section here. To highlight this, it looks like there's a little bit of a delay, so I'm going to wait until it picks up. Okay, there we go. Sorry, there was a delay on my screen. All right, so as Andrea mentioned, Smart Tags is a great feature to help determine what clips in your system or what coverage in your system is considered a feature, mention, or a brief. So it's a great feature. We did build that feature from end to end in the Comms Cloud for you. So now not only can you manage that out of settings, but you have the ability to search by it and filter by it. So just to do a quick highlight of that, if you wanted to come in and search for everything that's a feature, you can do that search. And then also, as Andrea mentioned, it's available now as a filter. So I'll see it in all ways. I'll see it in the search. I'll see it here in the filter. I'll see it on the clip itself. So right here, just to kind of highlight that for you all. I'll also see it in the grid view with the columns, as one of the columns is an option, and that is exportable. So again, kind of end to end, if that's a metric that you guys care about, especially if, like Andrea mentioned, if you came from our CPRE product, you may be familiar with this, and it's something that is a really cool way to kind of highlight the coverage in your system as being either a feature, mention, or a brief. If you don't have that set up, definitely reach out to services or support, and they will help you with that. Again, it's a very cool feature and something that is now kind of complete throughout the Comms Cloud. A few other things I want to highlight besides just the Smart Tags feature is something you may have already noticed. When you're running a search in the Communications Cloud, there's actually now the ability to search by including or excluding, as opposed to just using it as an inclusion. So some fields have this available. Typically, it's going to be your multi-select field. So I could come in and say, show me all the clips that have this tag of reviewed, or that actually don't have the tag of reviewed, and then I'll see everything else so that I can take advantage of those clips and tag them as needed. So that's another option that you'll now see when you're searching to give you a little bit more flexibility in your coverage. Another thing you'll notice here at the bottom of the page is your My Coverage saved searches are now actually available on this page. Similar to saved searches in influencers that we just talked about, this works the same way. So if you've been using saved searches on your My Coverage page this whole time, you'll now see them repeated here, and you can just click on them. It populates the screen for you. You can make any small changes you need to that saved search. Suppose you're going to change the date range for today or something like that. And then you can run the search and get the results you need. So just an easier workflow for saved searches to give you some more access to those on the search page itself. A couple more things I'm just going to quickly mention. You can edit the headline and the text of an article now. So if I go into my coverage and I go onto a clip, you'll notice in this panel view here, there's going to be a pencil next to the headline as well as the text if you're an admin user of the system. And you can make small tweaks to that. I know that happens sometimes with broadcast clips if a change is needed in that respect. So not something that's used very often, but definitely something worth noting that you can now do if you need to. And lastly, there's a new filter specifically that I want to highlight for outlets. So if you want to go through all your coverage that you've got in front of you and you want to filter it down based on the outlet that received the most volume, you can easily do that now with the outlet filter. So I've highlighted it here on the left. You can actually search within it too. So if you've got a lot of clips in front of you and you want to narrow that down and see just the clips from a certain outlet, you can do that. And it acts just like the rest of the filters. So just a few other things that are part of this release that I wanted to highlight in case you haven't already found them yourself. I will pass it back to you now, Andrea.
Great. So at this point, we are going to do some Q&A. Ideally, I'd love to get to all of the questions, but it probably won't happen. So what we'll do is we can follow up with anyone who we don't get to offline. I have gotten a few questions in the inbox around the date of the release. This release actually is live already. It went live last week. So you should have access to these upgrades already, with the exception of our social feature. That does mean you have to have an additional SKU for that. We have a promotion running this quarter, but that's something that you'll have to reach out to your appropriate account manager for to talk about specific pricing and how to get that set up. Now, Emilee, so the first question we have is, can you link multiple Facebook or social media accounts within the same platform?
Great question. So the answer to that is each data group you have or each workspace you have can have one of each social network connected. So you can connect one Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and LinkedIn, because those are the 4 networks we support connections for, not necessarily monitoring for all of them, to each data group or workspace. So if you have multiple workspaces, each of those can support one. So if you're looking to connect more than one Twitter account to a specific data space that is not, or a specific workspace, that's not possible at this time.
Okay, and then a follow-up was just, I think our account only measures Twitter and possibly Facebook. Is Instagram part of this upgrade?
So Instagram is something that we, if you're speaking to the monitoring piece of the social analytics and pulling in Instagram posts as a part of your coverage, that's included if you have the social monitoring package as a part of your account. So I would suggest reaching out to support and saying that you want to make sure your search terms are set up to optimize on Instagram as well as on Twitter and Facebook. That way you can start receiving that content too. Perfect.
Can you only monitor social accounts which are linked to your account, or can you add other social accounts that you have?
That's a great question. So if you're monitoring social media through your monitoring package, it's actually regardless of the social account that's connected. You may notice that the social account that's connected, some coverage comes in from that, but the monitoring terms are set up completely differently, and they go through our entire pool of social connections that we have. So you don't have to worry about linking anything or connecting anything. Once you go through our services team and you decide what keywords you want to monitor on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, they will set that up for you. And then we go out and gather that information from the sources we're able to. So that's a great question. You should be able to get a lot of content with that, regardless of what you've linked up.
Can you give, we have a couple of questions about this, but can you give a brief description of how they can connect their Facebook and Twitter accounts, or is that something that we could maybe send out after the fact?
I could show it really quickly. It's very simple once I pull it up, just for those that are still on. So I pulled up the Cision Communications Cloud again. This is actually right next to where we were earlier. If you jump into the gear wheel settings page in the upper right-hand corner, actually the first page it lands you on is your social media account. So this is where you can connect your Twitter, your Facebook, your Instagram, which will all be necessary to support the social analytics stats feature that we talked about today. But you can also connect a LinkedIn or a Pinterest account, which are used for social publishing through the platform. So if you want to send messages out to those networks from the Cision Communications Cloud, that's what those two are doing in here as well. This is where you can connect them all up.
Perfect. Let's see. Now we're going to move on to some consolidated profile questions, but can you generate reports from the notes or history section of a contact's profile?
That is a great question. So the notes is an exportable field in the briefing book. So if you wanted to see that information, as well as in the export. So when you go into the influencer section, the reporting that is available on the action bar there, those can be included in that. So that's, I think that answers that. And what was the second part to the question? Oh, the history section. The history section is also a part of the briefing book. So it'll show you the last 5 of the history attached to that person, and that is now consolidated as well. So if you go to a media contacts profile and you share that profile, you will see the last 5 histories attached to that person. And I'm sorry, I'm speaking there about the share via email button that's on the individual contact's profile. That's where you're going to see the history. So there are different places you can do that. There's no exact report on that history kind of module that you see there. You can also go into your activity section of the application under the campaigns tab and export any activities that have been generated from there in the form of an export as well. And if you need any help with that or want someone to kind of walk you through how to find it, definitely call our support team because they'll be happy to walk you through that. There are a few different ways depending on what you want that you can get the information.
Great. Will there be a consolidation project to consolidate outlets as you did influencers?
That's an interesting question. So outlets we consider kind of individual in and of themselves. Now there are the concept of bureaus, which we show on the outlet page where you can find, the New York Times, for example, has a Washington, D.C. bureau and a Austin, Texas bureau. So that we do consolidate on the profile page itself. There's no plans to do any form of consolidation the way we've done it for contacts because there just aren't multiple outlets. There's one record for each. If you see differently, definitely let us know, and it can be something that our research team can look into.
Perfect. Now, does social analytics show up in my campaigns?
That's a great question. They do not yet. That's something we're looking at doing. So definitely provide that feedback to your account manager, something you'd love to see. The My Campaign section won't at this time include any of the social analytics data that we showed today. That's going to be kind of in the My Coverage and Analytics section outside of My Campaign.
Okay. Does adding the smart tags feature incur an additional cost?
It does not. So if you subscribe to our monitoring package, so if you have monitoring as a part of you're bringing news in every day, it's a part of your package. You just need to reach out to customer support to ask them to help you to get it turned on for you, and they can either train you how to set it up or they can set it up for you. Great question.
One question I'm not sure you'll be able to answer. Will these Google Analytics be added to the PR reporting as well?
Did you say the Google Analytics?
Yep, the new Google Analytics metric, excuse me.
Good question. So there is no reporting on the Google Analytics at this time, but that's something we're looking at doing. So you can see it on the clicks, you can see it in outlet conversions, but there's no way to get that information out of the system just yet. But that's really good feedback for us to take back if that's something that's important to you guys.
Under a contact profile, can you manually enter an item under history, or is that section auto-populated by sending emails through Cision, et cetera?
That's another great question. So both. If you send an email through the Cision email distribution workflow, it will show as an activity on that person's profile automatically. And we'll kind of take care of that for you to let you know they got the email. You can also go to that person's profile, and there's a button on the activities module It's a little plus sign where you can add a new activity. And by doing it from the profile, it automatically populates the name and outlet because you're on that person's profile. You just fill out the rest and hit save, and it'll show there immediately. The other place to do that is in the activity section, where you can actually do it manually from there as well. If you're going to do a bunch at one time, that still requires you to type in the name of the person and the outlet because you're outside of their profile. But either of those places support manually added activities, and all of them will show in the history section of a contact's profile page.
Now, back to the Smart Tag News filter. One person just wanted to make sure they understood clearly, so if you could clarify. These tags are something we put on news, or are they something that Cision applies?
It's a good question. So it is a automated tag on your coverage based on what keywords you want and the frequency you want to set. So there is a default, but the idea is if you are monitoring for your company and you want every time your company is mentioned 3 times in the first 250 words, that's considered a feature. I think that is the default setting. That's what it's doing. And so it's automated in a way, but you have control over what keywords it's looking at within your coverage, and you can toggle the default settings for what determines a feature, a mention, or a brief, if you so choose. So we are automating the tags. That's why it's called Smart Tags, because it's automatic. But there is some element of control in the settings section if you would like to choose how and what it's looking at.
Thanks, Sam. So are you considering bringing back the capability to search for contacts by your outlet list as an option in the search page? We used to use that previously in the platform.
Yes, so searching for contacts based on outlet list is something that's on our radar actually fairly soon. So keep an eye on every time you log into the system, make sure you look at the search criteria. We'll continue to communicate additions like this, but that's definitely something that that's been asked before and something we're looking at doing. So it's great to hear that that's something you guys want.
Another question, will there be more ways to limit ad hoc media searches coming soon?
I would need to know specifically what that's in reference to. I'm assuming that's referencing the all news section, which would be considered ad hoc. And yeah, we're always continuing to expand that, but I think I would need to know more details on that exact question to answer it thoroughly. Sorry.
No problem. We have another one around the news section. How can a business filter news results to show only the articles that are relevant to them and not all articles that share the same word as their specific business?
Yeah, that's a good one. There's a lot of things that can be done there. First, I would probably suggest contacting your account manager and saying you want to work with someone in our services department to refine your search term to keep that news out altogether. Because if it's not relevant for you and you're seeing it in your coverage, and you truly just want to delete it because it doesn't belong, you don't ever have any use for it, kind of refining your monitoring term setup, the keyword searches that are determining what comes into your coverage would be step one. And then once you get that kind of fine-tuned, then everything in there should be relevant to you, and then it's just a matter of what's most important to you at the time. And that would be when things like searching by your company name based on your analytics, or searching by your smart tags, depending on what you need at the time every day, or whether you're running a specific report. There's different ways to slice and dice it based on what you're looking for. But it sounds like, based on that question, there should be some search term refinement on what's actually coming into your coverage, which services can definitely help with to make sure you see what you want to see every day.
Okay, great. Now we do have, let's see, we have a couple more questions. Here we go. Will we be able to add our own private media outlets to Cision? We previously had that ability and often would like to add private outlets and contacts to go with them.
Yeah, that's great feedback, and that is definitely something we are looking at doing. You're not the only one that's asked for that, so that's something we're focusing on early this year to try and get built into the system for you guys. In the meantime, if you do need a private outlet added, you can always call our support team, and they can add it for you behind the scenes for your account specifically. So there is a workaround temporarily until that's opened up as functionality for you to kind of self-serve.
we have a web analytics question. In the conversion tracking, are you able to measure how a specific earned hit, for instance, a product placement on a web page, generated traffic and sales on your client's e-commerce page?
Ooh, that's a good question. We may have to take that one offline. The way that it's working is it's looking at the Google Analytics numbers directly. So those metrics that we showed on our screen, it's bringing those over straight from Google Analytics. So I think for your specific question, if you wouldn't mind sending it over to your account manager, and she can work with the product team to see what you're trying to accomplish, and we can work through how to get that information.
Excellent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop it here. We've had a series of questions following up about whether or not they'll have access to these slides. We do apologize for the technical challenges we had at the beginning of the presentation. We will be sending out a recording to all of you on this coming Thursday. You should be able to share that with some of your colleagues. I know there had been some interest expressed in order to do that. Also, anyone that has posted a question, curious who their account manager might be, thinking they may have left the company, we will reach out to you directly and ensure that you have support from one of our account managers. So we'll be following up on that. And other than that, thank you guys all so much for joining today. And we hope that you enjoy a bunch of these enhancements that are already live in your account. If you are interested in the social add-on, please reach out to your account managers, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.